The story of this Shinigami happened 2000 years before the beginning of the events of the first chapter of the story of Bleach, and 1000 years before the founding of the Gotei 13 itself. We don't know how the Shinigami were doing their affairs, how they were fighting the Hollows in the real world, nor was there another organization before the founding of the Gotei 13. We don't know. All we know is that there was a Shinigami whose name was famous throughout the Soul Society, and he was known for strength and courage in the battles. And because he fought many battles, in one of them he got a scar on his forehead. The scar was like the letter A. That's why one of his men started to call him Ijisai. And this Shinigami was Yamamoto. Yamamoto wasn't just an extremely powerful warrior, rather he was a teacher and founder of the Ginryu style and the Shinigami Academy. And that was one of Yamamoto's greatest achievements at that time. And therefore Yamamoto had a number of students who were learning the arts of the sword from him, and they followed his method and his style of fighting. And as a PS, back then Kyoraku and Okitake weren't born yet. But unlike the others who thought to enter Yamamoto's school just to learn from him and be masters in the future, there was a young Shinigami. He didn't want to follow the same path as the others. He wanted to take another path so that he would be useful to Yamamoto, and he is the young Sasakibe. We don't know where Sasakibe came from. Is he from the city itself, like he is a son of one of the noble families, or is he one of the distant regions of the Reikonga? And wherever his origin, Sasakibe certainly had a mighty will, so that he always frequented Yamamoto's whereabouts. In the latter, he didn't like being called Ijisai, but Sasakibe didn't stop from calling him that name. And more than that, Yamamoto was wondering why this young Shinigami kept coming to him every day. Yamamoto doesn't want a server, and Sasakibe isn't even his student, so he used to ask him, "Why do you come here every day?" And this scene was the first appearance of Sasakibe as a young man. He had a nice features, but full of vitality, in which you feel that he is someone who wants to learn and achieve his dream, whatever that means, and his dream was to become Yamamoto's right hand. So Sasakibe explained to Yamamoto that he didn't want to be his student. If he did, he would be just imitating him, and he doesn't want to be his servant. He wants to be his right hand, his hand that can do things he's not able to do. Then Sasakibe added he didn't come every day to him. His last visit was a month ago. He's now able to release the Bankai. And here guys, I'm wondering about how Sasakibe became a Shinigami. Because what we know right now is that all the distinguished souls entered the academy. So is the Ginryu school that Yamamoto founded at that time was playing the role of the academy? Or there was another organization that supervised these things? Because Sasakibe wasn't a student of Yamamoto, and yet he was wearing a Shihakusho and also had Zanpakuto that enabled him to get Bankai. Anyway, back to where we stopped, the most important thing is that when Yamamoto ordered Sasakibe to master his Bankai, Sasakibe took it seriously and started training until he was able to release the Bankai. And this is the thing that made Yamamoto with no choice just to accept Sasakibe's will and test him. So he told Sasakibe to try to defeat him using his Bankai. In the manga, we didn't see the battle, but we may see it in the anime. However, what we're sure of it is what Yamamoto has said about Sasakibe's Bankai. He said that his Bankai was brilliant. It's true it wasn't able to bring down Yamamoto, but the power of the Bankai was able to permanently injure the old man on his forehead. It can be said that Sasakibe's Bankai is the first weather-controlled Bankai to appear in the story, before the Zanpakuto of Toshiro. Although the Bankai inflicted that scar on Yamamoto's forehead, the latter told Sasakibe that the Bankai was just a baby Bankai. Of course, Yamamoto didn't want to tell him the truth. The reality, as I said, the Bankai was so strong, it made a second scar on Yamamoto's forehead, to the point it made him change his name from Ijisai to Ginryusai. And more than that, Sasakibe didn't get upset because of Yamamoto's words, rather he said he's agree with him and that he's gonna work hard to hone his Bankai for Yamamoto's sake. And that's what happened. Sasakibe had trained hard to achieve such level that made everyone in the Soul Society know his name. And this was Sasakibe's creed. Sasakibe didn't care about possessions. He didn't want to be Yamamoto's student and become a master, like everyone was doing. Rather, he focused his full attention to serving Yamamoto in the way he wants. And just imagine with me that before the Gotei 13 existed and before the birth of all the current captains, Sasakibe was famous name in the Soul Society. However, I do think that Sasakibe's path will change in the beginning of the second millennium and exactly after the foundation of the Gotei 13. There where everything will change for Sasakibe. As I said, we don't know how things were run before the Gotei 13. Were their position like captain and vice captain? We don't know. But what I'm sure of, that after Yamamoto created the Gotei 13, and there were terms like captain and vice captain, there were some problems began to arise for Sasakibe. Because Sasakibe's philosophy was clear. I don't want to be a captain or the strongest vice captain or enter battles to prove that I'm strong. All I want is to be the right hand of Yamamoto. Unfortunately, some captains, some Shinigami saw these ideas of Sasakibe are just excuses and that he's just a weak Shinigami. And Byakuya clearly stated this. He mentioned that some captains used to say this, even though he's more experienced than them and one of the most vulnerable Shinigami who released the Bankai centuries ago. And he had the chance many times to be a captain when there were vacant positions, but he refused. And as I said in my old video, and I will repeat it, Kobo made a big mistake to let Sasakibe among the trio that tried to attack Ichigo. If you really had his past and all these things that we have seen about him, logically Sasakibe shouldn't have a problem in challenging Ichigo in that mode. The important thing is that Sasakibe for 2000 years didn't find himself obligated to use Bankai in front of an opponent, and the only moment he will see that he must use his Bankai is when the Wanderreich wanted to storm the headquarters of the First Division. The attack was led by the Risco, and at that time Sasakibe was with his colleagues of the First Division. So I think he tried first of all to fight with his Shikai, and when he saw things can't be controlled by that, he went to release the Bankai without knowing that the Wanderreich are able to steal it from him, and that was the end of his fight and also his life. Sasakibe's Bankai is considered the first Bankai to be stolen by the Wanderreich. So in general, I can't say that Sasakibe was a wasted character by Kobo. I don't think Kobo had his story from the beginning. That's why he wasn't paying him much attention. Otherwise, he would have gave him some screen time or some hints that he has some sort of history with Yamamoto. Like what he did with Unohana Yachiro. Kobo was foreshadowing that she is the first Kinpachi from the beginning of the story. Unlike Sasakibe, we had nothing that can make us have a conclusion that this character can do something. So guys, tell me what you think about Sasakibe Chojuro, and see you in my next video.